If you want to start a brawl with cheese people, probably the fastest way to do it is to call Parmigiano Reggiano by its generic American name, Parmesan. Because unlike brie, which can mean a lot of different things, Parmigiano Reggiano actually is a very, very specific Italian cheese. There are all kinds of rules and regulations around its production and its aging. And if you don't follow those rules and regulations, you don't have that cheese. But to most of us Americans, Parmesan means all the hard Italian-style cheeses that are nutty and flaky and granular and grate really well. So that's why Parmesan is my next gateway. All of those hard, crystally crunchy cheeses, while you can definitely grate them and cook with them, if you're gonna snack on them, here's what they're gonna taste like. At the core of all the Parmesan types is cultured milk, like a tangy, milky flavor you would find in cultured butter or in buttermilk. That and sweeter, toastier cooked milk. Then there's tropical or fermented fruit flavors. And finally, there's an abundance of nut and candy flavors. That's not to say these cheeses are actually sweet like candy, but they have flavors that are reminiscent of caramel or butterscotch. Parmesan types are among the most aged cheeses in the whole world of cheese. They're made to be that way. During the cheese-making process, the curd is cut into tiny rice-sized bits. Cutting the curd up into tiny little bits helps it expel whey and moisture and makes it primed for aging. Most of the Parmesan types are cooked to very high temperatures during the cheese-making process, which gives that foundational nutty, toasty flavor. And then finally, they're often brined for an extremely long time. So in the case of Parmigiano Reggiano, for example, that thing floats in brine for 3 weeks after it's made, and only then is it moved into an aging facility. Most of the Parmesan types are aged for 1 to 3 years. So by the time you buy a piece, it is utterly lacking in moisture. In my own taxonomy of cheese, I put aged Gouda in the Parmesan gateway. Young Gouda is very moist, very pliable. It's got wax on the outside of it. Aged Goudas, like these guys here, have way more in common with Parmesan and Parmigiano Reggiano. They in particular are gonna be the ones that have those bourbony, butterscotchy flavors and can have huge crunchy bits inside the cheese. So when you're ready to go buy some Parmesan types, what should you look for? In a word, Parm types are toasty, but at the approachable end of the flavor spectrum, that toastiness is really sweet. Lots of butterscotch and caramel. Go for American-made Parmesan. Sartori is a great maker out of Wisconsin, or you could look for a French cheese like Mimolette. It looks like a giant cannonball with a bright orange interior. If you want something that's a little bit more complex and intense in flavor, getting into butterscotch and bourbony notes, look for an aged Gouda. Rapanere is a great brand. At the most intense end of the flavor spectrum, where true Italian Parmigiano Reggiano reigns, there are really bright, acidic, fermented, fruity flavors. These flavors remind me of kombucha. If you want some real ass-kicking Parmesan, go for the classic, Parmigiano Reggiano, 2 years minimum age. If anyone tries to sell you more than 3, don't bite. If you want to branch out from there, check out another northern Italian cheese called Piave. So to wrap up, Parmesan is an American-made cheese inspired by Italian Parmigiano Reggiano. It doesn't meet the European criteria for provenance, milk type, or for aging, but it's what most Americans know of when we think hard, dry, nutty tasting, good for grating cheese. If you like these super aged cheeses with their nutty, toasty flavors, don't limit yourself to cooking with them. The hard texture makes them a perfect vehicle for putting something sweet, sticky, or viscous on top of. Traditionally in Italy, that would be aged balsamic vinegar, but here I love fig jam, quince paste, or honey drizzled on top of a bit of cheese.